Hey, guys.
Hey, Bert. How you doing?
Well, you know, we geologists always get a little sad when October's over.
Wordplay?
Yes.
Funny wordplay?
What do you think? Trust your gut.
Sheldon, I've got these 4 billion-year-old meteorites. I thought maybe they'd show signs of neutrino interactions. I could really use someone like you to help me with the math.
Oh, so they would act as natural dark matter detectors.
That sounds interesting.
It does, but it's still geology. Sorry, Bert, I don't have time to play rocks with you.
I'm not asking you to play rocks. I'm asking you to collaborate on a research project. Although, if there's time, I guess we could play a round of zinc piece of quartz.
Does sound better than cricket.
Thank you for asking. Unfortunately, I have real science to do. Yeah, but you feel free to rock on. That's how you do it.
All right.
Sheldon, what are you doing? Bert's one of the top guys in his field.
And somewhere there's a mime who's top in his field. But you don't see me rushing to collaborate with him on new ways to be stuck in a box.
Also something I would watch instead of cricket.
Hello.
Hey, Sheldon.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it, and I suppose I could help you with your research.
What changed your mind?
Bert, I'm a gift horse. Don't look me in the mouth.
Sorry. I'm happy you want to help out. If it's easier for you, we could just work at your office.
Wait, no, not in my office, no. Let's do it here, in the evenings, after everyone's gone home.
I just have to see if my evenings are free. That's a joke. They are.
Okay, well, then I will see you tonight. Wait, you know what? Why don't you close the blinds? We can start right now.
Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state that nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids, math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang.
People trust our internet, but they don't trust our prices. So it's time for a change. Our new Extreme Internet packages now include everything you need: Wi-Fi, security, unlimited data, and equipment. No surprises, no confusion. It's what you expect and deserve. So look, other companies will show you a lower price with lots of fine print. But we're keeping it real. No gimmicks, just great value.
Life's better when you're under.
Iowa State has won the Big 12 because of this game, but I do think that this presents a really nice marker at this point in the season, a litmus test for both teams, and I think both of them really played hard, played well for the most part, and showed a lot of guts. So my opening thought on this is, it was a pretty good game for both teams.
Now, some Hawkeye fans might think a little opposite,
Yeah.
like the sky is falling.
Sure.
But I think
I can describe what I think was negative at some point.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
but
we'll get to that.
yes.
But I'm on board with you in saying that this is not an end-all, be-all sort of deal. Jack, what are your takeaways?
I think we're sort of living in a somewhat backwards world where Iowa State, they're the team with the great tight ends, and they're the team where at the end they're the ones you trust to make that final play. Matt Campbell has so much trust in his quarterback, Rocco Becht, and his kicker, Kyle Conrarty, and they're the ones who made the difference at the end. They went out and took it. They went out and won the game. Iowa never really got that chance at the end. I agree with you, Scott. A lot of negatives, positives from both teams, but not sky is falling for Iowa. They've still got the Big Ten in front of them, but a lot to fix, and I know we'll get to it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of those playmakers for the Cyclones, because two of them happen to be local area guys. Kyle Conrarty, another Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week, second straight week, and I mean, he's had quite the season. He had that 63-yard field goal against South Dakota. That's a career long. It's a program record. It's a Jack Trice Stadium record. And then, of course, his 54-yarder on the game winner. He also went 3 for 3 against the Hawkeyes. He is from Dubuque, a Dubuque senior grad, and it's nice to see kicking in this state, I guess, doing well, wouldn't you say?
Well, the phrase in Iowa City for the last few years was punting is winning. Now
Right.
it's kicking is winning. And I think it encompasses both teams because Drew Stevens also was 2 for 2. But
Yeah.
Kyle Conradi, we know one thing about this series, whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, wrestling, and then, of course, in football, is when you make a big play in this game, it stays for a long time. There's some staying power. And for him to hit 54-yarders in Kinnick Stadium to win with only a couple seconds left, and then to do it the other day into the wind, and he was less sure about that one than he was the year before. I mean, it shows a lot of guts, and he did it from the right hash mark. There's some challenges with this, but he was able to get it done, and I don't know if he'll ever have to buy another drink in Ames, if maybe a Diet Cola and maybe a few other things on the side.
There you go.
He's just a great human story. He's not even just a kicker story. Kyle Conradi was a soccer player who didn't even like football going into high school, but his older brother kicked. And he was like, you know what, if my older brother can do it, I'll do it. And how many kids from Dubuque Senior do you see go on to star in Power 4 football? And there he was at the end with Matt Campbell saying, I'm not going to say the word, but I'll say the letter, F it, let's kick it. He has trust in his guy. Still a young guy. He's a redshirt sophomore, but he's got trust. And dare I say it, Kyle Conradi might be playing his way into an NFL contract if he goes like this. Keeps going like this.
That would be awesome to see. Also, a little luck happened with this one, but Gabe Burkle, Iowa State's tight end, he's a Cedar Rapids Prairie guy, had 2 pivotal, third down catches to set up that game-winning field goal. Just made an excellent play on a tipped pass that honestly was double tipped at one point. So, I mean, just incredible awareness. And I enjoyed listening to Rocco Bagda after the game when he kind of said he giggled once he saw it all play out. What did you think of the play?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that was a third down play. If that ball, I thought maybe it would get intercepted because that's what generally happens in those plays. And if nothing else, if it hits the turf, Iowa gets another chance, and maybe Drew Stevens kicks the game-winning field goal. But Gabe Burkle, a guy that Iowa overlooked, and this is coming back to bite him because at worst he's the second best tight end in the game, and I'm not so sure that he isn't 1B based on how he played. And then that little jump pass also was really, he sold it well, had a nice block, broke out. 2 big plays by a Cedar Rapids Prairie guy who's had a really tough couple of years. He got hurt early in his career, and here he is now, coming up with 2 of the biggest plays in a really important Cyhawk game.
And you mentioned, too, that so often we see those plays get intercepted, and I can think of so many times where Iowa has been on that interception side of things, so that could have really shifted this game. It would have been great, field position for the Hawkeyes to then take over at that point, but instead it goes the Cyclones' way. Do you want to add something about Gabe?
I was
Jack?
just going to say Burkle is such a good story. I'm sorry. I'm thinking Bramer because Bramer might be the NFL talent on that team, but who's the best tight end on that team? You can make an argument it's Gabe Burkle. And I know if Mark Bliss was watching that game, he was happy because the star of Prairie, who didn't play a ton his senior year, I believe if I remember correctly, he got injured in his senior year, didn't get offered by Iowa, and like you mentioned, Scott, comes back to bite them. And it really shows the development of tight ends. Obviously, Burkle gets most of the credit, but you got to give a lot of credit to Campbell and Taylor Mauser, a former tight ends coach who turns to the offensive coordinator and draws up some creative stuff like that jump pass. They ran a very similar play against Kansas State. Jump pass to Gabe Burkle. I go back to the T word again, trust. They have trust in their players to make plays.
You're talking about 2 third down conversions. The first one, the one where it got tipped, it's 3rd and 4 at their own 27. That if they're punting, Iowa gets the ball roughly at its 40-yard line with 5.5 minutes left in the game. 3rd and 2 at the 48. That turns into a 10-yard gain, and they only get 3 more yards before they kick the field goal. So 2 massive plays, and I'm sure Gabe Burkle felt really good after that game.
He should. Well, I know there's a lot of Tiger Hawks around here, so why don't we talk about some of the positives for Iowa, right? I thought the defense took a positive step this week. Obviously, the Cyclones' only trip to the end zone came on that Jeremiah Cooper interception. Otherwise, the Hawkeyes, they truly held their own, in this one, forcing Iowa State Conradi to make those field goals. What did you like, Scott, from this defense week 2?
I had a feeling that the first drive that they would struggle with the script, which it always seems to happen with Iowa, that the team kind of knows what Iowa's going to run and they're able to kind of move up the field. After that, they really settled down. I mean, they held Iowa State to 238 yards. Rocco Becht, who's terrific, of course, 134 passing yards. Held them to 104 on the ground. I mean, this was a great effort by their defense, and I think it took them a little bit of time to get going, and I think at times that you could see some of the inexperienced players still need to react a little quicker in certain areas, but overall, that was a much better defensive performance than I expected, and they gave them every opportunity to win that game, even though Iowa State, was able to put itself in field goal range late in the fourth quarter.
This feels a lot like 2022 and 2023, and there are positives to that, and there are negatives to that. The positives is that Iowa, they're going to bend, but they're not going to break. They hold the line twice and force field goals from Cromartie. It's a 13-13 game at halftime where Iowa State was really dominating, but Iowa was able to hold the line on defense. I really liked what I saw from the linebackers. If there was one thing we definitely learned is that yes, Iowa does have something in those two linebackers, Carson Shire and Jaden Harrell. Shire, who has just been a little bit inconsistent over his 4 years, makes some huge hits that you could tell Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt on the broadcast loved. 13-13 at halftime gives them a chance to win, and that's kind of what Iowa's defense has been doing for the last few years now. And another TJ Hall was the other guy I forgot. He had a fantastic day as well. He's their dude, their number one corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk about improvements that need to happen for the Hawkeyes. Passing game. Yeah. Game, and then we'll kind of talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. All right, welcome back into Pickle Palace for another edition of On Iowa Live. We are going to start with an audience question. This one is from Walt. It says, if the O-line is above average and the QB is above average, then are the receivers the ones at fault for the lack of success in the passing game? I know we're going to elaborate on the passing game a little bit, but just answering that question, what are your thoughts?
I'm not so sure that the quarterback I would rate above average right now.
Okay.
He's not playing above average. I would also say that the wide receivers are not playing above average either.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of reasons, and we'll get into them.
Yeah.
But I would say that probably equal parts for both of those.
Right, Jack?
I was just going to say the same thing as Doc. I think we should just get into a bigger discussion about the passing, the passing game.
All right. Well, obviously, looking a little bit at the passing game, Gronowski is not thrown too well. Just 127 yards combined against Albany and now Iowa State. It's the fewest passing yards by a Big Ten quarterback in the first 2 games in history. I think that kind of says it, but what areas need to improve when it comes to the passing game?
I think we should just let that sit and marinate for a few seconds. I'll start off by this. He's 13 of 24, and then there was 83 yards.
Right.
I think Iowa's play design did not include many hits deep. And I thought that was probably a miss by the offensive coordinator, frankly. I think that should have been more part of the scheme. I will say that Gronowski also was victimized by 4 drops. 3 of them were in the second quarter. And there was a couple real critical drops. I thought the slant that Jacob Gill dropped right at midfield, right when they were starting to get things going, I thought that was really a bad play. And there were a couple others too. That said, Iowa State has a terrific defense. When you look at Rocco Beck, 134 yards, you weren't going to get much yard acquisition in the passing game on Saturday. However, I think Marks, to me, the areas where he struggles in right now is he throws behind his receivers, and that's probably due to chemistry.
Okay.
But a lot of it could be arm strength because when he's throwing across the field, he's never hitting it on target. And I think that maybe that has to be Tim Lester pulling back the reins a little bit and saying, what could we do to give our quarterback the best chance to make plays? That's probably more vertical straight ahead and more in the bubble as opposed to trying to throw a 6-yard out from the far hash mark because his arm's not strong enough to get there. So I think that's what I would start with. I would also say the inconsistency among the pass receivers. They're not running crisper routes. And when they are getting open, then, again, 4 drops were pretty critical in this game.
Now, follow up to that. Obviously, Gronowski had the offseason surgery. Do you think it's an arm strength thing, or do you think it's just getting back into it post-surgery a little bit?
I don't know about the surgery. I have asked about that, inside, and they don't think that's an issue. But what kind of the chemistry part of it is, whether it's being behind receivers, not throwing on target, that's a combination of his fundamentals, which are pretty sloppy, frankly. He's not stepping, he's not throwing, he's not doing the things that you need to do at this level to really generate a lot of power. And in a lot of cases, he has a tell that I'm sure will be investigated by really good Big Ten defenses, that when he is ready to, when he's throwing the ball out of the shotgun, he's more upright, and when he's running it, he's more crouched over. You can get away with that at South Dakota State. You're not going to be able to get away with that when you're playing against good teams.
You bet. Jack, what do you want to add?
Yeah, general thoughts on Gronowski, and I've been racking my brain for something more complex than this, but it's basically Mark Gronowski is not elevating the Iowa offense, but the Iowa offense isn't elevating Mark Gronowski either. He's this reported lots of money guy you get out of the transfer portal, but if you're willing to spend a ton of money out of the transfer portal on a good quarterback, why are you treating him very similarly to the way Cade McNamara played, the way Deacon Hill played, the way Spencer Petras played? I don't think it's this simple, Doc. But you've got a Cadillac Escalade. Why are you taking him on the same routes as your Toyota Camry? It might just be because Gronowski has taken too long to recover from that shoulder surgery. I think his shoulder's fine. I think the difference is he hasn't developed that chemistry with the wide receivers. A conditioning clearly was an issue against Albany. And now it's leaving Iowa fans left with more questions than answers.
Yeah, I will say I think you could definitely see the timing was off against Albany. It was a little bit better against Iowa State. But flipping it to just Iowa State and their offense, I mean, it wasn't anything grand or spectacular when you're comparing it. 134 passing yards, 104 rushing yards. I did think a stat that stood out to me, though, was third down efficiency, 8 of 15 compared to Iowa's 5 for 14. But when you're comparing them, quite honestly, it's not too big of a difference, right?
You're right, and that's why when I said it kind of at the outset that I thought this was a really good, well-played game,
Yeah.
is I don't think this is some existential Iowa State's the best team in the country. Should be firing Ferentz and just stopping the season and not playing. I mean, I do think that they're very evenly matched, and at this point in the season, I think you could also tell that Iowa State, by virtue of playing a much better opponent in week one, has something to build upon. And, and now winning 2 out of 3 against their biggest rivals, in this season already in Kansas State and Iowa, that's really shows how they're able to engineer victory through Rocco Becht. Again, the statistics, as you mentioned, weren't real strong.
Right.
They only scored 1 touchdown, and that came after an interception in which the receiver fell down for Iowa or slipped. So, but they took advantage of it. They put together a good enough drive with help from Gabe Burkle and the Miracles, but you still were able to do it. So I thought they engineered victory, and that's what you have to do in these games.
They do it really well too, and
Yeah.
that's the thing I think that stands out about Iowa State is when they need 4, they get 4. That's what they're going for. They're not kind of overthinking it. We are going to be right back. We're going to talk more probably about Iowa's run game after the break. Well, welcome back in to Pickle Palace and another episode of On Iowa Live. We're going to start with a question. This one's from Eugene. Is the offense too complicated to understand for some of the players?
I don't think so. I think this is probably less complicated offense than what Iowa previously had, which you can take that for what it's worth, but it's true. I think in this situation that it's really there's just a lack of chemistry right now in the passing game, and that's holistic. That needs to come from whether it's Kirk and Tim Lester's play design. If they need to emphasize the strengths that Mark Gronowski has, it needs to come with more chemistry with him and the wide receivers, them putting themselves in better positions to make catches, him putting the ball in the right spot at the right time, even because a lot of times he was even behind on some passes that turned into completions. So I don't think it's complicated. I think it's more about just making it happen, which I know people don't want to hear, but it's the truth.
I'm going to echo a point that a lot of players say. It's about execution. I don't think this offense is very complicated. Frankly, we have been hearing about and we've been reporting about the improvement of the wide receiver corps. So many of them, like Seth Anderson and Jacob Gill, decided to come back to Iowa to continue learning the Tim Lester offense. What happened to these guys? They got to take a look in the mirror because they come back It's year 2 under Tim Lester. They have a whole offseason to learn these more complicated routes, but it feels like it's not getting more complicated. This isn't the advanced Tim Lester offense. It's intermediate at best, and I think the execution has just been off.
Absolutely. Well, talking a little bit more about Iowa's offense, the run game, we haven't mentioned that. They did have more than 100 yards rushing. Jazz Patterson led with 60, but then behind him was Mark Gronowski, which, isn't something you want to hear from their depth that they have at that position. Obviously, Kamari Moulton's still out, but they just didn't have those explosive plays, I think, against Iowa State that, you're kind of wanting and used to seeing, especially after a season with Caleb Johnson. And then, of course, just, Kamari Moulton being out, I just want to mention it does not look good for Addison Estrenga either. And then Reese Vanderzee also still out. So you're losing offensive weapons as well. What about the run game? Was it a positive step, do you think, Scott? Yeah?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, last year there were several breakouts from Caleb Johnson, and but I will also say that was because Iowa State's defense was not very good. And they had a lot of injuries at linebacker last year, which led to a lot of big explosive plays in the running game. And you have a guy who was returned the opening kickoff for the Steelers, so he's a pretty good player. I mean, not for a touchdown, but just did. But I think the one other aspect that you mentioned there, Chelsea, and this was a really good point, Addison Estrenga is now probably out, if not for the year, certainly for a great deal of time with a lower leg injury. Reese Vanderzee is, to me, their number one receiver.
Yep.
He's out. Their number one running back, Kamari Moulton, and I think it's unquestioned their number one. He's out too. So you put your three skill positions, your 3 top players are out. That really makes you adjust. Now, I did like what Jazz Patterson brought in the running game.
Yeah.
Real physicality. He's got a really high floor, maybe not as high of a ceiling as other guys, but he punches it really hard.
He reminds me of a pinball machine, the way that he bounces off everyone.
Exactly. So I thought it was a positive in the running game. I thought Mark Gronowski did a nice job, at least the running quarterback. If he's not going to throw, at least he can run. But I do think that there needs to be, if they can get the passing game going, which they will this week, by the way, then I think you'll see the running game take off with it.
Yeah, I think the running game looked good. I think the offensive line looked really solid as well. The problem was the play calling. I thought especially early in the game, it was very, very predictable. Run on first down, run on second down, throw on third down. I think with the running game, you have to just change it a little bit. Maybe throw on first down. Maybe run the slow mesh a little bit. Have Mark Gronowski run on first down. There was one play at the end of the first quarter where Gronowski ran for 10-plus yards on an RPO, and they really didn't go back to it as far as I can remember. So I think it's a little opposite of the wide receiver. It's not a bad execution. I actually like the way Patterson runs. I like what I saw from Xavier Williams, and I hope Kamari Moulton comes back soon because he's looking pretty good. I think the play calling just needs to get a little bit better and be able to stretch the opponent a little bit so your runs up the middle start going for 6-7 yards as opposed to 2 or 3 yards.
Well, you mentioned it, and we'll build off of Gronowski running. He did that finally in the second half. I think that opening drive for the Hawkeyes was one of the most promising about what this offense could do, getting him into the mix of things. I don't know why, they don't do it more often, but I think they need to from here on out.
Yeah, he's been a good component of that. I really liked the 17-play, 85-yard drive that when they're down 13-3 in the second quarter, for them to answer that way really showed a lot of guts. That's a tough environment. I think when we're talking about negatives and what Iowa needs to do differently, you do have to remember this is a team that won 11 games last year, played for its conference championship, that's ranked 16th, now 14th in the country, that's at home, that's 8-1 in their last 9 games when they it's one score. So this is a really good team, a really good defense that's better than it was last year on defense. So I thought Iowa battled. Obviously you give an A for win and an F for loss, but okay, fine, they lost. You give them in the L column. But I still think this is a pretty good team, but they've got a lot to work on between now and when they play the Big Ten opener in a week and a half.
Yeah.
I thought with Gronowski, one of the big positives wasn't just the fact that he was able to run, he was also able to extend plays. I'm not sure I saw Gronowski take a sack. Obviously, he got sacked, but he never took a sack. He always had the opportunity to extend the play just a little bit. I think the one sack that the pocket completely collapsed on him was at the very end of the game. Tamatoa McDonough, who's a really good player, number 58 for Iowa State, comes in for 2 straight sacks. One of those plays, Jennings Dunker wasn't even on the field, so I think a huge positive for Iowa is what Gronowski can do with his legs, Chelsea. It's not just running up the middle, running around the outside. It's also taking what could have been a sack, turning it into 0 yards or 2 or 3 yards.
Yeah. Well, we talk about how, teams need to improve, especially at this time. It's still early in the season. Iowa's 1-1. We've mentioned the passing game, where they need to improve on and everything. What areas, more areas, do you need to see from Iowa that's going to get them? I think you predicted a 10-win season potentially for Iowa. What's going to get them to that 10-win season?
Well, I don't know if they'll get there now, but I think right now what you got to worry about, just improving period, is I think, again, it starts, a lot of it's going to start with scheme. And among the things that I was probably a little bit disappointed in was I didn't see enough crossing routes. And I think for somebody like Gronowski, who appears to be semi-limited with his arm strength, if you can put somebody in the middle of the field running the ball and you can give it to them and then allow them to do something with it, especially against a deep zone, I thought that would have been more helpful for them to move the ball. I would like to see more of that. And this may be anti to what Tim Lester wants to do, but I think that's really where it starts. And then it's about growth at the other positions. I think you're going to have to define a tight end. Because is it Zach Ortworth? Is it your turn to step up? DJ Boname, is it his turn? Is it Michael Burt as a young player? Hayden Large is an older one. So they've got a lot of growth that they need to do, but I think it's just continuous improvement as much as that sounds like the execution part of things, but it's really where they're at.
Yeah, I really want to see improvement from Mark Gronowski, and Iowa fans, I think, have the right to be frustrated because the whole he's got to improve, he looks better thing. Yeah. Indiana fans didn't say that about Curtis Rourke when he transferred from Ohio a couple years ago. This is your 5th-year guy who comes from South Dakota State. He's a proven winner. But I guess we got to get past that if you're an Iowa fan and just say, Gronowski's got to improve. He's got to improve steadily. Against UMass, come on, you got to throw for 100.
Oh, for sure. I will add that the Iowa fans have every right to be frustrated because it feels like you're watching the same thing. And then here's this new guy, and some idiot like me says, hey, they're going to be great at quarterback. And then it's the same thing. You're like, come on. It's the same dull cracker that I ate last year. It's just a different flavor. And I'm like, but the thing that makes me think that this may be different than a few other ones, Chelsea, is that he has done it before. He has engineered victory. He's won 50 games as a starter. He's won the national title twice. So that's why I think it might be better this time.
Just give him some time. All right, we're going to have audience questions when we come back and our pick-ems.
Hi, I'm Frank Balvanch, joined today by Nicole from Elite Fitness and Ability Physical Therapy. Nicole, how many Elite Fitness locations are there now?
We have one personal training studio in Solon, and we have 4 24/7 locations in Center Point, Marion, Lisbon, and our newest location in Cedar Rapids.
And what actually sets Elite apart from any other area gym?
Elite is unique because anytime you see an Elite Fitness, there's an Ability Physical Therapy nearby. So because of this, we have low impact equipment such as the New Step, which is great for a new replacement who might come into the gym, all the way over to our resistance machines, squat racks, and anything for your typical gym goer.
Tell us what services Elite offers.
We have personal training, group training, nutrition coaching, RMR testing, and we also do strength coaching at a couple of local schools, CPU and Linn-Mar.
That sounds good. And how can people get in touch with you?
You can go to our website at www.elitefitnessiowa.com.
Very good. Thanks, Nicole.
All right, welcome back into OnIowa Live. We are going to get to some audience questions. At this point, is the defense better than anticipated based on playing experience? Yes. No.
I was impressed with the defense. Yeah. I thought they actually were better than I thought would happen against Iowa State because Iowa State with their tight ends, with Rocco Becht, I thought they would move up and down the field a little better than what they did. So I was impressed with the linebackers, particularly. You know, I think they did a nice job. Yeah. I thought that even though they didn't get a lot of pass rush, and they do need to force some turnovers, but overall, I would say that they are a little bit better than what I expected.
Yeah. I think the same thing. I was a tiny bit worried about the linebackers. Were Preston Reese and Cam Buffington going to nip at the heels of Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire? It seems like absolutely not. Those guys have stepped in. And I think TJ Hall is one of the great stories, underrated stories, because a couple of years ago he just got burned against Nebraska when Cooper DeJean went out. I was at that game. I remember it quite well. He became a much more improved player last year, and now he is a true #1 corner. So, yeah, based on playing experience, Iowa fans weren't sure. None of these guys have a ton of games or starts under their belt. Seems like Iowa defense is going to be just fine.
Definitely ahead of where I thought they'd be at this point. Yeah. Based on Iowa's first 2 games, do you put them in the Big Ten's top tier 6 teams, the middle 6, or the bottom 6?
I would put them in the middle 6 still. I wrote about the Big Ten today and just kind of and everybody's schedule is so different. Yeah. I mean, I know Nebraska's flexing right now. I mean, they beat Cincinnati by 3, and then they beat Akron by 68. And it's like, well, Akron couldn't beat UMass, who's playing this week against Iowa, and UMass can't beat anybody. So I think this is I'm going to give them some time. This is a team that traditionally plays really well. I mean, they're 19-3 in their last 6 years, I think it is, in the month of November. Let's give them some time. Let's not write the end of this book yet.
Yeah, middle, top, bottom.
Middle 6, just because there are so many good teams in the Big Ten. And I think Iowa is just – Kirk Ferentz is not going to get them into the bottom 6. He hasn't for 20 years.
Yep. Last one. We seem to have an issue getting pressure on the QB other than blitzing. What else can we do?
It kind of depends on the team that you're playing against. And they got some – I thought they made some disruptive plays. They didn't really get – sacks as much, but they were disruptive. It's going to take a little bit more. I would expect that number to soar this week, and I mean Max Llewellyn and Aaron Graves are taking steps forward. It's just going to come along.
I think you have to remember this is also a scheme thing. Phil Parker, please correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, but Phil Parker doesn't dial up a ton of blitz. He trusts his guys to stay in their own lane, and in terms of one-on-one matchups, the 11 guys on Iowa's side are going to beat the 11 guys on the other team's offensive side more often than not. I do think as an individual, Aaron Graves, Ethan Herkett, Max Llewellyn, Brian Allen, some of those guys who've been there for a while, I do think they could use a good game coming up either against UMass or against Rutgers just to get some confidence in them because those are some great pass rushers.
Yeah. All right, before we let these guys go, we're going to do them pick-ems. Iowa versus UMass. We all picked Iowa, no surprise. That is partially now because UMass is missing starting quarterback, starting wide receivers, corner. They are a little bit depleted on their roster heading into there, so I think that's a no-brainer. Anything you guys want to add?
You know, I mean, this is a team that's 0-2. It lost to Bryant the other day, 27-26, and then it lost to New Mexico State, 19-3. It's given up 433 yards per game to those teams. Yeah, this isn't as a good UMass team. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I can't add much more than that.
Yeah, Iowa State, Arkansas State, across the board, we all picked Iowa State. Jack, you want to take that one?
I picked Iowa State, but this is a game at Jonesboro. It's a weird one. How often do you see a Power 4 team go to Arkansas State? Arkansas State, I don't know if this is their Super Bowl. I mean, they just played the big guys from the University of Arkansas. But they're going to get up for this game. And, man, Matt Campbell, I remember after Ireland, he was saying, man, we've got a tough schedule. I think people took it out of context, like this is the hardest schedule in the country. It's not the hardest schedule in the country, but it's not easy to play your biggest rival in Iowa 2 weeks after Kansas State, and then go to Jonesboro. All that to say, Iowa State's still going to win.
I would say one other thing to that is a couple of years ago, they went to Ohio when they had Curtis Rourke and lost a game. And at that point, Iowa State fans were chirping at him, you're to get him fired. And he got really mad that day. But that type of a loss is why they're not going to lose this game. I mean, Arkansas State has some decent athletes. They're better than UMass. But this is the type of game where they're going to put their workmanlike fashion. Yes, they've played 2 highly emotional games in their first 3 weeks, but having that experience against Ohio will keep them from falling down at a place like Jonesboro, Arkansas.
And then Eastern Washington versus UNI. We all picked UNI.
Todd Stepsis has a win against Eastern Washington last year at Drake. So, I picked UNI. I think that Matthew Sheckelman, he's not going to be as good as he was in week 1 for UNI. He's not going to be as bad as he was in week 2.
Yeah. Let's make these last 2 quick so we can get them in. Georgia, Tennessee. It's a little bit split. Colin and I went Tennessee. You two went Georgia. Why?
Georgia always beats Tennessee.
I was going to say that. I just think the Joey Aguilar magic kind of falls off a little bit. Georgia hasn't played their best game yet. I think they're going to take the win. I'd be happy to be wrong, though.
My grandpa is a Tennessee fan living in Georgia. We always go with the Vols. And then we have Miami this week. They are going against, do you guys remember?
USF.
Yeah, who's disturbed a lot. They just beat Florida, right? But we all went Miami.
Yeah, Miami's a good team. They've got some good players. USF has been a great story, though, to win the other day and then have the spit off from the Florida defensive tackle. But still, great stories. Miami is pretty good.
Yeah. I hope I'm wrong, but I think Miami's going to win. Magic runs out again for USF in week 3.
Dang, man. Well, thank you guys once again for joining me. When we come back, we will have Clear Creek Amana head coach Jackie Cook join me up here. right, here's a look at this week's volleyball nominees for Athlete of the Week. Iowa City Regina's Reese Nave leads the state in kills with 172 for an 8-5 Regal team. Cascades Addison Frank ranks second in the state, 158 kills. West Delaware's Lauren LeClaire has 117 kills on the season. She also leads the Hawks in blocks to vote. Visit our Instagram story or our website homepage at kcrg.com. Now we have another very good volleyball team here with me and head coach Jackie Clubb from Clear Creek, Amanda. I'm sure one of your ladies are going to be on our Athlete of the Week nominees later this year. But so far, sitting 12-1 on the season, you've swept all of the opponents that you've beaten so far. How does that feel at this point in the season?
We're sitting pretty good. We feel pretty good right now. Clearly getting that one loss kind of helps us learn from what happened right away. But we're looking forward to our first conference match tomorrow against South Tama, and then we have a really tough tournament on Saturday at West High.
A lot of returners from last year. How have you seen that kind of play out just, early in the season?
We're pretty fortunate to return some strong seniors, strong lineup. We had minimal fixing of what we needed to do as far as who's going to play in the rotation. So once we got that figured out, we just kind of started rolling this summer, and we really haven't stopped since. So.
And I counted 7 seniors.
Yes, 7.
Is there a lot of leadership on this team?
Yes, it's great. They come with great experience. They've been there. We've had good participation in off-season stuff, so that also helps. And they're in different competitive situations with other sports, so that helps as well. But the seniors have been great, and they're great leaders, and we're going to miss them, definitely. So.
Yeah. Also, though, you guys have had that number 1 next to your name since the preseason. It's still there. Yeah. I'm sure it feels good, but it also kind of adds a little bit of pressure, right?
Added pressure for sure. Pressure's a privilege, but also that number 1, definitely we get everybody's best game. And so that makes us learn from that and hopefully be able to learn from basically any sort of situation that puts us with that pressure is going to help us in the postseason. So
now this team, 37-8 last year. You reached their 3rd consecutive state tournament. Yeah. How has that experience been for this team?
I think that's something we build on, and we talk about it weekly. What did we learn from our previous years? Things that work well, things that didn't work well. This group is really receptive to feedback and can learn from their mistakes and learn from past experiences, which has really helped us this season.
Yeah, that one loss. Yeah. What did you learn about?
It was
team?
A tough loss, Chelsea.
I'm sure.
After that loss, we kind of regrouped, and some of the seniors who had been in that situation could just feel the tension and use that to have a conversation with the team and say, we're not going to let this happen again, and we really haven't turned back since. Yeah. So it's been we're going to learn from this experience. We're not going to let this overcome us, and hopefully can carry that on to the rest of the season. So
I found it fascinating reading that article that Jeff Linder about your whiteboard and the things that it says on it. Would you share with our viewers just what are some of those things and what do they say?
We build on some of those things where ego and fear and complacency, just some of the things that we can't get in our way of getting better. And we've had those moments, and we've talked about them in the huddle. And again, what's really helped this group this year is their accepting of the feedback that we're getting and knowing that that's what we have to get better on. So,
have you had many teams that have been so accepting of that feedback, or do they differ in that?
No, I think it's we've always had teams that have been accepting of the feedback. That's why we've kind of been so successful. But sometimes early on with that number 1 rank, sometimes it's difficult. But no, it's been great. They've been great. And I think the seniors that show that acceptance of the feedback helps the younger kids realize, okay, we got to be all on the same page and move forward. So.
Absolutely. Well, when we come back, we're going to have the entire volleyball team join us on the stage. Stay with us. right, welcome back into On Iowa Live. We have the entire Clear Creek Amana volleyball team now on stage with me, and they're blocking the wind, which is awesome. All right, why don't we start down here, Avery? This team is 12-1 on this season. What do you credit that to?
Yeah, I think that all of us have such great team chemistry and we love playing with each other, and I think that's a huge part of why we're so successful. And we're all really receptive to the feedback like Coach Clubb said. So I think that's a big part of the success this year.
Yeah, Soraya, why don't you answer? What do you think the strengths of this team are so far?
Yeah, totally. We have obviously tons of returners with lots of experience throughout many seasons as like seniors and even juniors, but also we have even lots of girls that are coming up and filling positions that are needed, and they're doing it wonderfully, and so we just have many positions of front and back row. So yeah.
And then Emily, it seems like you guys have a lot of height. Do you guys use that to your advantage?
Yes, we definitely do. Our front row is definitely one of our strong suits this year. So we definitely use our height to our advantage. And
are we stuck? Oh, you're good.
It's definitely used to our advantage this year.
Absolutely.
If you have it, you got to use it.
What makes, all these weapons kind of come together, Avery? Just, is it, you mentioned that team chemistry and everything, but on the court, is it the fact that you guys have been playing together for a while as well? What is it?
Yeah, I think that all of us separately have a ton of experience, just like with club sports as well. So I think all of us coming together for high school season helps that out.
Yeah. That one loss, what did you guys say as a collective group about how are we going to kind of, wipe this one and move on?
Not let it happen again.
There you go.
We came back to practice the next day, and Jackie was like, we got to get on this. Like, we're going to make practice harder. We're going to be more focused, and we're just like, we're not going to make those mistakes again.
Yeah. That #1 ranking, it comes with that pressure, but it's also a good thing that, others are looking at you like, this team is going to be good. How have you handled that this season?
Yeah, so in the past when we were that undefeated season, that was an additional pressure that was added onto us. But with that one loss, it's easier in a way because we don't have that sense of, oh, I want to be their one. Like they are 46-0, but we want to be that one. We don't have that kind of hierarchy of what they can have on us, I guess.
Yeah. You mentioned that undefeated season. This is a group that's been to 3 consecutive state tournaments. You know what it takes to get there. What does it take to get to that level?
Yeah, always having a chip on our shoulder. That's, we can't let down ever. People are out to get us, right? So.
And you said South Taman tomorrow.
Yes.
What are we expecting from that matchup?
South Tama has improved a lot. Never underestimate opponent. South Tama is also a tough place to play. They got a great student section usually, and it's a long bus ride. So those are adjustments that we need to make and have to make, and then come back and be ready to grind on Saturday. Saturday is going to be a tough tournament as well. So,
what do you guys do to have fun as a team?
We have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Anyone like to share?
Oh, we have a Wacky Wednesday.
Oh.
In previous years, we've dressed up, but we've kind of gone away from that. But, part of our warm-up is we'll do serve and then cover ball, and then we do a wacky ball, and then everybody just runs all over and tries to get the ball because you're working on, when you just shank the ball and you're like, oh, my God. But we have a lot of fun as a team. We're actually scheduling to play pickleball soon as a team.
Ooh.
A little bit of team bonding. So we'll see who wins because that'll be a debate.
Has anyone ever played pickleball before?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have a lot of fun as a team. Sometimes Jackie would say too much fun, but I say it really helps our team dynamic.
Yes.
And as long as we can stay focused, I think it's great.
And aside from volleyball, do you guys do a lot of team bonding activities outside of it?
We don't really have a lot of time right now, Chelsea.
That's true.
We'll try to get a little bit more. The academics, the sleep, eating right, we're trying to make that more of a priority. But, yeah, we'll do fun stuff outside of here. So when we have time.
You bet. Last thing, biggest goal for this year, what is it?
Want me to answer that? I want you to answer.
I want to win state.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, we will maybe invite you guys back when you do.
Oh, yeah.
Sound
Sure. We'd
good?
love to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for making the drive down. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Chelsea.
That'll do it for this week on OnIowa Live. We'll see you next week.